from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Niket Karunaratne together with Dulanjali Ananda. We'll start off with the headlines as usual. The government and the International Monetary Fund enter into a basic agreement on loan facilities. The Nelum Kuluna operations are to begin on the 15th of next month. Investments from many local and foreign entrepreneurs. 13 parliamentarians of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna joined the opposition as an independent group. A higher demand for the Alla ODC luxury train. A birthday party in Pinnavala. Former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev passes away. On to those and other stories in detail now. Foreign media report that the International Monetary Fund and the government of Sri Lanka have entered into a preliminary agreement on credit facilities.
Meanwhile, the IMF in a communique says technical level talks have also been conducted today. Head of the IMF representatives in Sri Lanka, Masahiro Nozaki, says an official statement in this connection will be released tomorrow. The IMF delegation has arrived in Sri Lanka for technical discussions last week. They have first met President Ranil Wickremesinghe and technical talks followed thereafter. The group has also met opposition leader Sajith Premadasi yesterday. Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Weerasinghe, has stated recently that technical talks were conducted successfully. A Reuters report issued today said Sri Lanka and the IMF entered into a basic pact today. The report added that the agreement would enable the Sri Lankan government to carry forward necessary action and to receive the credit relief package from the international organization. Meanwhile, the Asian Development Bank has provided Sri Lanka emergency aid amounting to $200 million. The credit facilities have been provided by utilizing the Asian Development Bank funds reserved for projects. The funds are to be spent in the enhancement of food security, consolidation of livelihood of poor masses, and to assist women and children affected by the crisis. Now, the Lotus Tower of Sri Lanka is the tallest building in South Asia.
Plans are underway to inaugurate operations of this gigantic structure from the 15th of next month, adding a novel and enchanting experience to the Sri Lankan public. The Nelum Kuluna private company of Colombo says 15 orders for numerous ceremonies until the end of this year have already been received. Constructions in the Nelum Kuluna Tower had begun in the year 2012 and it was handed over to the Sri Lankan government on the 28th of February 2022. The cost of construction was $113 million. The Nelum Kuluna private company aims to create new sources of recreation to the people of the country. A prominent feature of the program is to provide opportunities for fun and frolic to the Sri Lankan public as experienced by those in the world's richest countries. Chief Administrative Officer of the company, retired Major General Prasad Samrasinghe, says 80% of local investors and 20% of foreign investors are already engaged in investments in the Lotus Tower. The tower operations are expected to be further expanded from January of next year. The Nelum Kuluna operations have been fortified in a manner to realize the expectations of the youth. The massive edifice is located in an extent of 10.5 acres. Any citizen is able to feel the splendor and excitement in the building by purchasing an entrance ticket valued at 500 rupees and 2000 rupees. For a foreigner, the admission charge is $20. Those who purchase entrance tickets of 2000 rupees are not required to remain in queues and they are allowed to visit the premises on several locations as well. Those who purchase the 500 rupee ticket are allowed to visit the tower only on one occasion. The visitors will be able to gain access to restaurants on the ground floor and souvenir shops as well. There is also a digital cinema hall on the first floor. Office facilities are also available in the same floor. The third floor is equipped with a conference hall with a 400-seat capacity. The open floors are reserved solely for recreational purposes. There is a rooftop rotating cafeteria as well. Under the Colombo sky, experiences could be felt at the top floor.
Now, parliamentarians representing the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna have sat in the opposition as an independent group today. The group is comprised of Professor G.L. Pires, Dallas Alahaperuma and Dilan Pereira. Meanwhile, queries have been raised in Parliament today over the arrest of several students of the Inter-University Student Federation. Parliamentarian Professor G.L. Pires said that they have decided to function as an independent group of the SLPP, but added that they would support any people-oriented acts of the government. He also said that the group includes himself, Dallas Alahaperuma, Dilan Pereira, Dr. Nalaga Godaheva, Professor Charita Herath, Professor Channa Jayasumana, KPS Kumarasiri, Dr. Ratnasekara, Attorney at Law Udayana Kirindigoda, Attorney at Law Wasantayapa Bandara, Dr. Upul Galapatti, Dr. Tilak Rajapaksha and Lalit Ellavala.
ගරු මහාචාර්ය චරිත හේරත් මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු මහාචාර්ය චන්න ජයසුමන මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු KPS කුමාරසිරි මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු ආචාර්ය ගුණපාල රත්නසේකර මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු නීතිඥ උදයන කිරින්දිගොඩ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු නීතිඥ වසන්ත යාපා බණ්ඩාර මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු වෛද්‍ය උපුල් ගලප්පත්ති මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගරු වෛද්‍ය තිලක් රාජපක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා හා ගරු ලලිත් එල්ලාවල
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa said that members of the Inter-University Union have been subjected to a brutal attack and also tear-gassed. He added that he is inquiring the Prime Minister whether the law of basic rights is not operating in the country. 25 students have been arrested without a reason. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said that the basic rights does not mean the rights of an individual, but it encompasses the basic rights of all. The government is committed for the creation of an environment where all could live without harassment of others. The Prime Minister also said that the government has no intention to arrest persons under the Terrorism Prevention Act. All persons are being dealt under the normal law. He further said that it is the responsibility of the police to consider on the agitations conducted, causing inconvenience to others. All Sri Lankans hope to preserve peace and law of the country. The Prime Minister has also commented on several of their all friends crossing the lines. He added that in his 30 years of political experience, he has witnessed how persons leaving and joining parties. He added that the government has, as a policy, is bound to preserve the democratic administrative structure. Now, member of the Samag Jana Balawega, Dr. Harsh De Silva, has commenced the parliamentary debate on the second reading of the interim budget today. Several government and opposition parliamentarians have expressed their opinions.
Samagi Jana Balawege parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva said that the appropriation budget shows the direction of the president and that they are not against such a policy. He also said that Bangladesh did the same.
මම හැමදාම කියනවා වගේ මේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්ති දිශාව නැතිවට අපි විරුද්ධ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි බංග්ලාදේශේ කරේ. ඒක තමයි වියට්නාමේ කරන්නේ. ඒක තමයි බොහෝ රටවල් අද දියුණු වෙන්න ඔවුන් පටන් අරගෙන තියෙන වැඩපිළිවෙල.
අපේ ආචාර්ය හර්ෂද සිල්වා මැතිතුමා ආසයි බයයි. අයවැයි මූලික ප්‍රින්සිපල්ස් පිළිබඳව විවාදයක් නැහැ. ඒවා ඔක්කොම හොඳයි. මේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය හොඳයි. නමුත් එතුමාට තියෙන සැකය මේක
Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva said that there is no debate on the basic principles of the budget. All must think on how to take over the responsibilities. The country is in a more stable position today than before the period the present president has assumed duties. Farmers have received fertilizer. The fuel crisis has been settled to some extent and an environment has been created for the IMF to sign an agreement with Sri Lanka.
රටේ ස්ථාවර භාවයක් ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා පොහොර ටික ලැබිලා තියෙනවා ඉන්ධන ප්‍රශ්නය යම් ප්‍රමාණයකට විසඳිලා තියෙනවා දැන් IMF එකේ මූලික එග්‍රීමන්ට් එක අත්සන් කිරීමට හැකි වාතාවරණයක් සකස් කරලා තියෙනවා අපේ රට වගේම නේ වෙන රටවල
Minister Susil Premajayantha said that like in Sri Lanka, inflation has also gone up by 10% in Europe. Amidst all difficulties, an interim budget has been prepared to manage the economy in the next 4 months.
ගෙනල්ලා තින්නේ මේ මාස 4 කළමනාකරණය කරා.
අභියෝගවලට මුහුණ දෙන්න පුළුවන්. යෝජනා
Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian Tissatta Nayaka has questioned whether there is a set of proposals to face the challenges. He also said that the interim budget is like a political document. It has not been prepared by realizing the true situation in the country.
15 දක්වා වැඩි කිරීම හරහා ආදායම් වැඩි කරගන්න යෝජනාවක් කියනවා.
Minister Ramesh Patirana said that President Ranil Wickremesinghe was compelled to assume duties as Minister of Finance at a time of great economic turbulence. Sri Lanka is having a rupee crisis as well as a dollar crisis. The minister further said that in order to overcome problems relating to the rupee crisis, a set of taxes have been presented which include increasing of the VAT.
හැබැයි අපිට කියන්න අවශ්‍යයි පුලස්නට මන්ත්‍රීතුමනි මේ වැට් බදු අපි අඩු කරේ 2019 බලයට ඇවිල්ලා එහා සම්බන්ධයෙන් විශාල දුක්ගැනවිල්ලක් මේ රටේ වෙළඳ ප්‍රජාව අතරින් තිබුණා. අපි යහපත් චේතනාවෙන් කරේ හැබැයි බදු ආදායම අඩු වෙලා රටේ ආදායම අඩු වීම නිසා අපිට ඒ වැරද්ද පිළිගන්න වෙලා තියෙනවා. නැවත වැඩි කරන්න වෙලා තියෙනකින් අපහසුතාවයක් ඇති වෙයි.
දැන් මූල්‍ය අර මුදල එක්ක
Parliamentarian Partali Champika Ranawaka said that discussions are underway with the IMF. He added that it would take 2 years for Sri Lanka to stabilize itself in the IMF program. He has questioned as to what we should do until then. If we are unable to restructure the debt before then, the country would be faced with a problem. The ETF would also be collapsed if we disregard the consequences.
අපි විකල්ප මගක් සොයාගත යුතුයි මූල්‍ය අර
Now, Minister Vijaydas Rajapaksa says open discussions will be conducted with a sense of understanding with the Tamil diaspora. He has made these remarks in a media briefing organized by the Office of the Missing Persons in connection with the International Day on the commemoration of the disappeared persons. Minister Vijaydas Rajapaksa said that Tamil nationals in the overseas in a source of big strength to the country. He added that the diaspora have realized that the government is making an honest effort to restore national unity. They have been satisfied over the government's decision with regard to those incarcerated, over the government's decision with regard to those. As LTTs, only 30 cases are being heard in the high courts. Another factor is the land problem in the north, which has been resolved to a greater extent. We should not be afraid of each other as citizens. The President's blessings are with the oppressed. We could discuss our problems locally without going to Geneva.
Now, political parties in several media briefings have expressed opinions on the interim budget. Parliamentarian Udaya Gammanpilla said that the budget does not present any program to steer the country towards a production-oriented economy as a remedy to the economic crisis. He said that the budget gives no mentioning on how to develop Sri Lanka's special economic zone and massive resources with the support of foreign investments.
රටේ උන්නතිය වෙනුවෙන් උකහා ගන්නේ කෙසේද කියන එක ගැන මේ අයවැය කිසිම සඳහනක් නැහැ.
ලංකාවේ සමෘද්ධි පවුල් තියෙනවා.
Parliamentarian Ashok Abesinghe said that there are 2.3 million Samurthi families in Sri Lanka. The budgetary provision of an additional 3,000 rupees to the 3,000 rupee allowance on Samurthi families is inadequate. People's incomes have not been increased despite increasing the cost of living. The budget does not mention anything in this connection. He also said that President Ranil Wickremesinghe's vision is a market economy, but he could not implement it under the Podujana Peramuna policies. There is a higher demand for the Odessi luxury train plying between Colombo Fort and Badulla railway stations.
The Railway Department says seats have been reserved for 14 days in the first installment itself. Local and foreign tourists show great interest in watching beautiful sceneries along the track. However, train passengers say more facilities should be upgraded, including having lounges. Now, the Department of Meteorology predicts showers or thunder showers from time to time in many parts in the island today.
A disturbance in the lower atmosphere near Sri Lanka has been reported. The report adds that therefore, the skies in the southern region of the island would remain cloudy. In some areas in the western, southern, Sabaragamuwa, central and Uva provinces, heavy rainfall exceeding 150 millimeters could be expected. In some locations, fairly heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters could also be anticipated. The MET department informs people living in lowlands, along rivers, highlands, as well as motorists and road users in the mountainous areas to be into consideration of thunder showers.
The rain has been recorded in many areas of Sri Lanka since yesterday. That has been prior forecasted by the Met Department, and we have disaster management officials with the coordination of the Emergency Operations Center and the District Disaster Management Units. So we have coordinated and arranged all standby, all emergency rescue equipments with teams, and also the early warning system being activated to provide all these information to the vulnerable communities since yesterday. And this information flows in 24/7 basis to aware all these communities at the ground level. Yes, still there is no any damage has been recorded, but we are continuous monitoring the situation with the technical information. And the Met Department already warned, and the forecasted for next 36 hours more than 100 millimeters rain could also be expected in especially in the central province and northwestern province and northern province, and also the western province, and also the Sabaragamuwa and Golmatara district as well. Still there are a lot of rain been pouring over that particular areas, and more than around 200 millimeters rain been recorded so far. The situation is completely monitored by our officials to perform 24/7 emergency rescue missions with the teams and all. The NBRO, National Building and Research Organization, they have issued a warning over the possibility of landslide and cutting failures and rock falls. This requires Kandy, Matale, Kegol and Kalambu, Kalutala, Gaul and Ratnapura. So people who are living in hilly areas, that need to be very vigilant with that particular situation. So signs are very important. If any signs of the landslides been observed, they need to move from this location to the safe area.
The western slopes in the central highlands are receiving lashing rains. As a result, 4 sluice gates in the Polgola reservoir in Kandy remain open. The Department of Irrigation cautions residents in low-lying areas of the reservoir to remain vigilant of any emergency. The Sri Lanka Air Force is getting ready to extend relief to face any impending disaster situation due to the prevailing inclement weather condition. The SLAF says the necessary aircraft and the troops have been stationed in the appropriate locations on the instructions of Commanding Chief of the Air Force, Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana. Heavy rains have also opened 4 sluice gates in the Dedaruoya reservoir since this morning. The engineer in charge of the reservoir says each of the sluice gates were opened 2 feet in order to facilitate the release of water at a flow of 5,400 cubic feet per second. He adds that, however, the prevailing situation would not lead to a flood threat in the lower Dedaruoya area.
The chairman of the Tourism Development Authority, Priyantha Fernandez, said at a media briefing at the Department of Government Information today that they are hoping to bring around 1 million tourists to the island before the end of the year. Chairman of the Tourism Development Authority, Priyantha Fernandez, said that last year only 194,000 tourists had visited the island. But this year, up to now, nearly 500,000 foreign tourists have arrived in the country. The chairman added that they are also hoping to earn a sum of 1.8 billion rupees from tourist arrivals.
The Colombo Stock Exchange's all-share price index reported a significant improvement today. The day's turnover was 4.25 billion rupees.
At the end of trading today, the all-share price index closed at 9,071 points, recording an increase of 205. And the S&P SL20 index also rose by 66 points to close at 2,928. A total of 134 million shares changed hands to 33,553 trades. Foreign purchases exceeds the sales with purchases to the value of 991 million as against 293 million shares. The market capitalization stood at 3,964 billion rupees.
The Ministry of Education says a sum of 16.5 million rupees has been spent for the provision of basic facilities in handing over school texts in the year 2023.
Paper needed for printing of school texts and examination question papers are being imported under Indian Credit Line. The State Printing Corporation has received cabinet approval for the printing of 44% of the copies of all texts. The ministry adds that the service of private printers will be obtained for the procurement process of the printing of the remaining 55% of the texts.
The governor of the Eastern Province, Anuradha Yahampath, says the Vaga Sangrama in the Batiklo district is being carried out successfully. A progress evaluation meeting of the project was held at the Eastern University premises. Attention has been focused at the meeting on ways of enhancing the cultivation drive. It has also been pointed out that the Eastern Provincial Council and the Eastern University should act jointly for the success of the program. A group including Vice-Chancellor of the University, Professor V. Kanagasingham, has also attended the event.
Now, the Ministry of Education informs that applications for the admission of students to intermediate grades in national schools will not be accepted after the 2nd of next month. A communique issued by the Ministry of Education says relevant decisions will be taken upon consideration of the requests of the applicants and the vacancies in schools and appeals presently being submitted. The first school term of the year 2022 is scheduled to end on the 7th of next month.
The Unforgettable Reminiscence series of the SLBC has been dedicated on popular singer H.R. Jyotipala. The Jyotigi Sandava was conducted at the Ananda Samarakon studio of the SLBC last evening. 12 artists have been selected for the singing of songs of Jyotipala through a voice test conducted over WhatsApp. SLBC Chairman Hudson Samarasinghe and the Director General Nalin Kumara Nishankar have also attended the event.
And now, on a lighter note, we have a story of the birthday of two baby elephants. The two calves were born on the 31st of August last year. This was the first twin elephant birth recorded at the Pinnavala orphanage. One of the babies was in a relatively weak condition at the time of birth. However, due to the untiring commitments of the veterinarians, both baby elephants were in good health. Director General of the Zoological Gardens, Dr. Tilak Premakantha, was also present on the occasion. And that's all the news we have from home. Do stay tuned for international stories coming up next. Welcome back. On foreign news, Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Soviet leader who brought the Cold War to a peaceful end, has died at the age of 91. Mr. Gorbachev took power in 1985 and introduced reforms as well as opening up the Soviet Union to the world. But he was unable to prevent the slow collapse of the Union, and many Russians blamed him for the years of turmoil and unsuit. In recent years, his health had been in decline and he had been in and out of hospital. In June, international media reported that he had been admitted after suffering from a kidney ailment, though his cause of death has not been announced. He will be buried in Moscow's Novachi cemetery, the resting place of many prominent Russians. It is not clear whether he will receive a state funeral. President Vladimir Putin sent his deepest condolences, describing how Mr. Gorbachev had a huge impact in the course of history. United States President Joe Biden called him a rare leader and praised Mr. Gorbachev as a unique politician who had the imagination to see that a different future was possible amid the tensions of the Cold War. Mr. Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Soviet Communist Party and a de facto leader of the country in 1985. Few leaders have had such a profound effect on the global order, but Mr. Gorbachev did not come to power seeking to end the Soviet grip over Eastern Europe. Rather, he hoped the revitalization of its society.
The United Nations Humanitarian Chief has urged donors to restore funding for development in Afghanistan that was frozen when the Taliban took over a year ago, warning that 6 million people were at the risk of famine. Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Martin Griffiths told the United Nations Security Council that Afghanistan faces multiple crises such as humanitarian, economic, climate, hunger and financial troubles, and that donors should immediately provide United States dollars 770 million to help them.
Now, Finance Minister of Pakistan, Mikhail Ismail, said the International Monetary Fund Board has approved the 7th and 8th reviews of Pakistan's bailout program, which will release $1.17 billion in funds to the cash-strapped country. Ismail also said the IMF agreed to extend the program by a year and augment the funds by $1 billion United States dollars. The money will be a lifeline to the South Asian country currently suffering from devastating floods, whose foreign exchange reserves have fallen to levels that cover only a month of exports and whose economy has wrangled with an enormous current account deficit and high inflation. The aid comes as Pakistan's economy has been buffeted by adverse external conditions due to the spillovers from the war in Ukraine.
Russian authorities say they will launch sweeping military drills together with forces from China to show off increasingly close defense ties between Moscow and Beijing amid the war in Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry said the Vostok 2022 exercise will be held from the 1st to the 7th of September in various locations in Russia's Far East and the Sea of Japan, and will involve more than 50,000 troops and 5,000 weapon units, including 140 aircraft and 60 warships. The drills will be conducted at 7 firing ranges in the Far Eastern Russia and will engage troops from several ex-Soviet nations, including China, India, Laos, Mongolia, Nicaragua and Syria.
Russian authorities say it will launch sweeping military drills together with forces from China to show off increasingly close defense ties between Moscow and Beijing amid war in Ukraine.
In which 17 countries, including China and Pakistan, took part. The Vostok War Games will take place across 13 different training grounds.
In another news, scientists have found major sea level rise from the melting of the Greenland ice cap is now inevitable. Even the fossil fuel burning that is driving the climate crises were to end overnight. The research reveals the global heating to date will cause an absolute minimum sea level rise of 27 centimeters from Greenland alone as 110 tons of ice melt. With continued carbon emissions, the melting of other ice caps and thermal expansion of the ocean, a multi-meter sea level rise appears likely. Billions of people live in coastal regions.
Welcome back. And in sports news, Afghanistan has been qualified to enter the round of the Super 4 in the Asia Cricket Cup tournament by winning both the preliminary round matches.
third match of the preliminary round of the Asia Cup cricket tournament between Afghanistan and Bangladesh was held yesterday. Bangladesh has scored 127 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in 20 overs. Mozadek Hussain not out 48. Mujibur Rahman and Rashid Khan took 3 wickets each. The Afghanistan team has secured the victory target of 128 runs with 7 wickets in hand. Ibrahim Sardan and Najibullah Sadran, scoring unbeaten 42 and 43 runs respectively, brought the Afghanistan team to victory. Shakib Al-Hasan, Mozadek Hussain and Mohammad Saifuddin have captured 1 wicket each. With this victory, Afghanistan took the lead in the B group of the tournament as well. Sri Lanka Air Force Sports Colours Night, a ceremony organised in appreciation of SLAF sportsmen and women, was held in Ratmalana. The chief guest was Defence Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne. 700 sports personnel competing in 34 sports events have been evaluated at the ceremony.
That's all the news for today. Join us again at the same time tomorrow. Good night.